What it is, guys, what's up? Mizzo Frizzo here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create your own first-person animations in Unreal Engine 5 using Control Rig and Sequencer. For anyone that's following along my true first-person shooter series, this is part 3, but this is also a standalone video for anyone who'd like to learn how to create your own first-person animations. So we're going to be using Sequencer, which is what you can see down here. It's a very powerful tool that allows you to keyframe movements of skeletal meshes or things in the world to create cinematics and animations. Control Rig is what you can see here, these arrows and boxes and shapes around the character skeletal mesh here. I'm also going to be showing you how to activate IK so that you can make easy movements with your character to create your own first-person animations. Just like this one here. So without further ado, let me show you how to do this. Alrighty, so we're going to create a new project using the third-person template, leave everything as default, and hit create. If you're following along with the true first-person shooter series, obviously you don't have to create a new project, but the point of this video is to just get you to start familiarizing yourself with Sequencer and control rigs. So the very first thing we're going to do is go to the content folder, characters, mannequins, and right here in rigs you'll find the control rig mannequin body. If you drag and drop this out into the world, this might take a second, skinning the asset, and drop this in, you'll see that the editor assumes that you're trying to create a new sequence and automatically opens up the sequencer and creates a new sequence for you with the control rig mannequin body right here already inserted into sequencer. There's a couple of ways you can go about creating a new sequence. It doesn't have to happen this way, but just so that you know, if I delete this from the sequencer here, this is still in the world, it's just not in the sequencer. What you can do is find this in the outliner over here, your mannequin body, and just drag it and drop it into the sequencer down here. If the sequencer didn't automatically open, what you can do is you can just go up here and go add level sequence. You'll add a new level sequence. Let's just call this one new level sequence, and it's opened up here. And then, as I said before, grab whatever you want to animate and drag it down into the sequencer here. So all of these shapes and arrows and boxes you can see are the control rig, and the control rig is just basically a way of just manipulating the body and moving it around. The very first thing I'm going to get you to do is come up here and just switch off grid snapping and the rotation snapping so that we get more smooth movements here. Also, a couple of things I like to do when I first start a new sequence is you can see this tiny little circular icon with the plus in it. It adds a new keyframe in the sequencer here, and if you select the one at the top here at the root, it will add a keyframe for all of the components underneath it. So these are keyframes here. Also, what you can do is select this button here. It basically enables automatic keyframing, so whenever I move anything on the control rig, it will create a new keyframe for whatever time is selected here. This, by the way, these units here are frames, so you can select the frame rate here. Let's change this to 60, why not? So 60 frames will be 1 second here, in 60 frames per second, 1 second. Another thing is switching on IK. So this is what's known as FK, which is basically only the ability to, oh, that's a bit funky, is only the ability to move one bone at a time. Okay. And this is a perfect example of the difference between FK and IK. If FK is on and I move this hand, you can see it's deforming the mesh If I just scroll to the top here, and under the mannequin body you'll find global, you can drop this down, and here you'll find arm left FK IK switch and arm right FK IK switch. If you enable both of these, you'll see these boxes have appeared around the mesh's wrists. You can select these boxes. These are the IK for the hands. So you can see now if I grab it and I move it, it's no longer deforming the mesh. It is just moving with it within the bounds that it can move. So I personally find this a lot easier to work with. When you're doing first-person animations, you basically want to move the hand where you want it, rotate it where you want it, and then you can do the fingers individually. So when you're moving the hand, the two main things that you'll move are the hand and these little gizmos here that allow you to move the elbows. Okay, so that's the basics of control rig and sequencer and switching on the IK. Let's get into animating. So to be able to animate for first person, we want to be able to see from the first person perspective. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to close this little window here. This does have a few useful things in it. You can hide the control shapes for when you want to check out your animations, and these things are a little bit distracting. You could hide them. You could also only select rig controls so that you can't click on anything in the world. You won't accidentally select the floor, for example. I'm just going to close this to open up some real estate. And what we're going to do is up here, you can change the layout of the viewport. No, actually, we are going to here in those three little lines here, this little drop down, and in layouts, we're going to select these two panes side by side here. Okay. This button up here actually just allows you to switch between the multi-pane or single pane, whatever you've got selected. We are also going to add a camera component. So if we just search for camera and grab a camera actor, drag it into the world here, and then in the outliner, what we're going to do is take the camera actor and drag it onto our mannequin body, and it will automatically pop down with a list of sockets for where you want to place it on the mannequin. I'm going to choose head, and then I am going to go into the details panel of the camera, and I'm going to zero out the location and the rotation. Now this ends up pointing upwards, but I'm just going to switch rotation snapping back on for a moment and rotate this 90 degrees this way and 90 degrees that way. And this part will be for anyone following along the true first-person shooter series, but also just in general. Now, I've parented this camera actor to the head, but you might have it in your first-person shooter, you might have it in the chest somewhere. So whatever the settings are, you'll just make them the same here. So we are using the head socket, and I believe we changed this location values to 8 and 12 so that this camera is right in the head there. Yeah, so once again, whatever your settings are, just make them the same here. Maybe you've parented the camera to spine 5 and its relative location is still in the head or in the chest or wherever you've got it, just place it there. And then over here in your second viewport here, you can select this one and just change it to the camera actor and switch on real time. Now, if I grab the hands and move them up in front of the camera, the other thing that it's useful to think about here is whether you've got the the changes you're making are in the global space or the local space. So you can change this to local space, which I find particularly useful when you're rotating stuff like the hands and the fingers. It just depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve at any given time. So for example, if I'm just trying to move the hands up in front of the face, in front of the camera, I might switch it to global space. And then if I'm trying to see, his hand is a bit bent over forward there, looks a bit unnatural, I might switch this to local, which is independent for whether you're changing the location or the rotation. So change the location to global space. Might leave this one as, sorry, local space, and leave this one as global. You can see also his elbow is a little bit in there. I might want to move that out. I might want to move this away from the camera a little bit and down, a little bit out. So we haven't started messing with the time on the sequencer here. It's still on frame 0. So this will be the initial pose of the animation. And what we're going to do is, now that I've got his hands up in front of him, I'm just going to make a very simple idle animation just to get the hands up in front of the camera. So with 60 frames a second, I might move to 60 frames here, and I'm going to grab the IK of the hands, and I'm just going to move them up a little bit and out a little bit, and that's it. Grab this other one, move it up a little bit and out a little bit. And now I want them to return to the position they were originally in. So if you scroll down here, under the 60 frame mark here, you'll find whatever keyframes have been created. And because we checked this one, these ones were just automatically created when we moved the hands. So you can look here to find, this is obviously hand IK, hand left IK control, and hand right IK control. I can select this keyframe and control click this C frame to select both of them. Control C to copy. I can move to 120 frames here and hit Control V to paste. And I've pasted in these keyframes over here on frame 120. So now my hands are moving up and out and then back to their original position. I can now select all 4 of these frames, Control C to copy, go to frame 180 and hit Control V to paste again. And now I've made a 4-second animation here where the arms are moving up and out and back in, up and out and back in. So it's kind of breathing there. And this red line here will be where this level sequence ends. So I can drag this to line up with the 240 here. Just a couple of other things here that you can play around with and get used to if you're trying to zoom in. This bar here is how much you're obviously viewing along this timeline. And if you want to go further, you'll have to grab this last value here, and this just is the maximum that you can view. So you can widen that even more. You can shorten this, and you can move across the sequence like that. Pretty much the last thing I'm going to show you is how to bake this animation into an animation asset. Scroll to the top and select the mannequin body here, right click and go bake animation sequence. I'm just going to put this in this animations folder right here, and I'm going to call this animation sequence _ test idle. Hit OK, and there are some settings here, but you rarely need to play with these. You can just leave everything as default and hit export to animation sequence. And now if I go to my content browser, look in the animations folder, here's my animation sequence _ test idle. If I open that up, there we go. There's the animation that we've just created. Okay, just to cap this video off for anyone who's not following my true first-person shooter tutorial series, which by the way I highly recommend you do, I have just migrated the test idle that we've just created, the animation sequence, into my ultimate true first person camera project, which, by the way, if you haven't seen that tutorial either, the ultimate true first person camera, I highly recommend you check that out. It's I honestly think it's the best guide on the subject on the internet right now. So I've just migrated this one in, and what we're going to do is open up ABP Mani and drag these ones out over here. I'm going to find layer blend per bone and grab my test idle animation sequence, plug it in here, make sure that loop animation is selected so it loops, and in layer blend per bone, layer setup, index, branch filters, I'm going to create a new branch filter for the bone name spine underscore 01, leave the blend power as 0 and check these two and hit compile, and you can see the upper body is now animated with the animation sequence we've just created. So I've just done this just to quickly show you that the animation works and you can apply it to a first person character. And that's it, guys. If this has been of any value to you, please hit like and subscribe. But if you're following the true first person shooter tutorial series, do stick around and I will show you exactly how to go through this process in a project using a Metahuman. Okay, once again, guys, this last little section is for anyone following my true first person shooter series. Now, you may have noticed since our last session, if you try to hit play, you might get this warning about blueprint underscore weapon component. What we can do is in the first person folder and blueprints, you can delete weapon component, BP pickup rifle, and BP first person projectile. We are not going to need those. We're going to make our own guns, and that should delete it from the world there as well. Okay, so in our underscore main animations, I want you to create a new folder called underscore anims. We are going to click up here and go add level sequence, and in underscore anims, make a new level sequence, ls underscore test idle. Make ls underscore test idle. As you can see here, I've already quickly thrown together an animation, but just to get the workflow down, new level sequence test idle in our underscore anims folder. Hit save. That's probably just a warning about something. Yeah, the test idle I've already created, so it's made test idle 2. Don't worry about that. In your metahumans folder, go into male/female, all the way down till you get to your skeletal mesh. Drag and drop this into the world. In sequencer, grab it from your outliner over here and drag it into the sequencer. That will make the control rig appear. Straight away, what you can do is add a keyframe on the first frame to the Metahuman control rig, the root. You have to, you drop that down, you see all those keyframes there, and make sure you have this automatic keyframe selected. Okay, also go into global and switch on the IK for the hands. We are going to add a camera actor. In the outliner, drag the camera actor onto your skeletal mesh and select the head. In the details panel for the camera, zero out the location and the rotation. Going to rotate. Rotation snapping switched on. Rotate this 90 degrees this way and 90 degrees that way. And now we just have to replicate the position of the camera in our character blueprint. So the camera in our character's blueprint was parented to the head with the location set to 6 and 10. So we want to do the exact same here. Change this to 6 and 10, and that camera will be in the exact same position. 3 little dots here, layouts, and the 2 panes side by side. Change this to the camera actor, and make sure if it says real time off up here, just click that to turn real time on. And that's it. You might want this set to only select rig controls. I usually just close this because it takes up a bit too much real estate. And go through the same process of creating an animation. So grab the hands, move them up in front of the camera, get them into the right position, make a basic little idle animation, and once you've done that and baked it to an animation sequence, what you want to do is open up your animation blueprint, which is nmbp_Chandra for me. Open your animation blueprint, find this layer blend per bone that we created in a previous session. That should be already all set up. Grab your test idle and drag it out, plug it into the blend pose 0. Make sure with test idle selected you check loop animation so that it loops. If we hit compile, his hands should be up in front of him now. And if we hit play, there we go. We have an upper body animation playing. Now, I strongly recommend that while you wait for the next video to come out, play around with Sequencer and maybe create some more animations. You might want to get the hands moving up and down independently for a walk or a run animation, then put those into a blend space, and then what you could do is just replace this as test idle with your blend space and plug in your speed variable. But the main reason I wanted to get to this point is that in the next video we're going to be creating a weapon system where you can pick up weapons and attach them to a socket in the hand, and I wanted his hands up in front of him just as a placeholder so that you can see that the weapons are spawning in his hands. That's it, guys. Please do, once again I encourage you, please do keep familiarizing yourself with Sequencer. My animation skills involved some trial and error and just hours, many hours making animations and figuring out how to make them smooth and realistic, how to make them look good and believable. And the more you practice with this and the more stuff you try to make, the better you are going to get at it. I'm just hoping that in future videos I can share some of my wisdom with you to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, for now, that's it. Thanks for tuning in once again, guys, and thank you for all the very kind comments that you've been leaving on my videos. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the engagement. I love to see that people are responding well to what I'm doing. Makes me feel really good about it, and it makes me want to continue. So yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one.